everybody, it's Emily at Arc Schooling, and today I thought we could do some more horror recommendations. So it is currently Summerween. I'm having a great time reading spooky things. I'm planning on watching some scary movies and all of that, but I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do some more horror recommendations? I've done this kind of thing in the past. I have some other videos if you want to go check them out. But for today, since I feel like I don't want to say the same books over and over, so I feel like I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I've come up with categories. I tend to read a lot of like the same types of things. So I took the books that I was going to recommend and I organized them. So let's go with my categories, shall we? I have Gothic. So if you like Gothic things, you like spooky, atmospheric, like maybe it's set in like Edinburgh or, you know, like it has a lot of those vibes. So let's start with Anatomy, a Love Story, which is one of my absolute favorite things I've ever read. This is by Dana Schwartz, and it is set in Edinburgh at the turn of the century, and we're following a character named Hazel who really wants to be a surgeon. Like, it is her dream. And it's like that whole like digging up corpses and like cutting up cadavers to learn about the human body. And so there's a lot of like that stuff happening, but there's so much like just really gross, weird things going on. This has some elements of magic, but not a lot. Most of it has to do with just good old science and digging up corpses and performing gruesome surgeries. I have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and this is also really short, so a perfect Summerween read, really. So this is a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. It is so atmospheric and so creepy and just has the most excellent vibes I can offer for a Gothic story. Like, it is exactly what you want if you love Gothic horror. It's also got mushrooms. Like, mushroom horror is a thing now, which, you know, I would have never looked at a mushroom or a fungus and been like, eek, scary. But, you know, lately, there's been enough books that I'm starting to be a little bit worried. Leading into Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I read this a few years ago and I really enjoyed it. Another weird mushroom book. There's quite a few lately. This one is about a girl named Noemi who gets a letter from her cousin, which is just like very frantic. So she has to go to her cousin's home in Mexico to try to rescue her. And it's like this crumbling, like creepy mansion, and weird things are happening. And there's mushrooms. So like if you're into that, highly recommend. Now let's go to another one of my favorite things to read, which is coming of age horror. And each of these categories, by the way, is going to have 3 things in it. So let's start with The Ghost Tree. This is excellent, like coming of age, talking about like best friends and like how they're starting to come apart. We've got a weird small town. So there's like the whole like weird things happening in town, and is the town cursed, and how is that affecting all the people in the town, and how do we break the curse, kind of a story. So like it's so good. It's set in the 1980s, so it has like a little bit of like the nostalgia of that time, and it's just a really good book. I have Squad by Maggie Tokuda Hall and Lisa Sturl. This is a graphic novel, and it's about a group of girls. This has like Mean Girls vibes. So it's about a group of girls who happen to also be werewolves, and they take out guys that are like really awful people, like the rapey guys. So the story revolves around the new girl in town who starts to like ingratiate herself. She becomes friends with this group of girls and where that leads. And it's a really good story. Like, this is one of the better graphic novel horror things I've read in a while, and I just am really glad I did. And again, werewolves, who knew? This is the second time I read a werewolf book and enjoyed it this year, and I usually don't think I like werewolf things. And I have The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. This one I've read like a while ago, and I don't remember it 100%, but what I do remember is fungus. And we have a zombie apocalypse happening, and we have this weird school setting and a girl who we're following her, and we don't really know what's going on. We know what she knows, and we start to like find out more things as the story progresses, but you're seeing it through her eyes, and it is a very interesting take on the zombie apocalypse genre. It is not something that I saw coming. Like, this book was full of surprises, but also just really well done. Now let's talk about horror movies. But actually, we're talking about books about horror movies. But if you like horror movies and you're a fan of that, then these books, I think, could work for you. Let's start with It Came from the Closet, Queer Reflections on Horror, which is a collection edited by Joe Valise. This is a variety of different authors who are all queer, and they're just talking about how different horror movies affected them and their coming out, or just like a movie that they watched that they saw through their lens and like how it affected them. And it was fascinating. This was very well done, very interesting. Some of these are movies I've never seen, and maybe I will go like seek them out now because now I'm curious about them. And some of them are movies that I've seen a million times, but the way they've described them is like a little bit, makes it different and new, and now I kind of want to rewatch them again. So if you're a fan of horror movies, this is a great collection of essays. I have Go Hunt Me by Kelly DeVos. This is a book about a group of teenagers who are making their own movie, and they've just graduated high school. They're making, the main character is making this movie as like her audition piece to get into this film school, and so they're going to Transylvania to film this movie. They get like someone to like cover their expenses, and people start dying, and it's just a really quirky kind of fun story. If you like the behind the scenes of people putting together a movie, if you like a murder mystery, if you like slashers, that kind of thing, you would probably enjoy this. And then I have to talk about Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, which I literally read yesterday. And I read the whole thing in a day because it was just so darn good. This is a book about a cursed film. And the concept is that this was a movie that was being made in the 90s. And it was like an indie film kind of a situation. And the movie never actually got released because something terrible happened on set, and so the movie just kind of got set aside and no one ever actually saw it. But it's become like this cult classic anyway. We're following a person who is like the sole survivor of that group of people who made the movie, and they're making a reboot, and he's making this audiobook about his experiences. So like you're getting to see like the movie as it was happening, being filmed, and you're meeting the cast that made it. And you're also seeing like him in the future reflecting back on it. There's also like screenplays sections of the book where like if you listen to the audiobook too, it's like a full cast audio, and you can like hear them turning pages, like it's a table reading, and it's just really, really well done as an audio. But like this was just very atmospheric, very much like it felt like a real movie. And I think the audiobook gave like some credence to it, being like it felt like a real table reading. But it was really well done, really good, very fun reading. Maybe you like books that are a little more emotional, a little more heartfelt, maybe a little bit lighter on the horror, heavier on like stories and about friendship or family. These books will work for you. I have two Grady Hendrix in this one because like I couldn't decide which one, so we're gonna do both. And so I have My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, which is a story about a friendship as it's like starting to unravel. But why is it unraveling? Is she possessed? Like, why is she suddenly changing and a completely different person? So it takes that idea of like growing apart, but also like maybe it's demonic possession. And perhaps I just need to work really hard to like fix her and save our friendship. And it's just really fun, really beautiful, lots of 80s nostalgia. The other Grady Hendrix I wanted to recommend is How to Sell a Haunted House, which is one of those rare horror books that made me cry. This is a story about a brother and a sister whose parents have suddenly died, and they are left with like dealing with what to do with the house. But also, their mother was very into puppetry. She had this whole Christian ministry with puppets, and some of those puppets might be possessed or alive. We don't know. Something weird is happening in the house, and so they're just dealing with it and trying to figure out what they're supposed to do next, and not getting along very well in the process, as typical brothers and sisters do. I just thought this was great. Like, it was fun, weird, quirky, like most of his books are, but I was sobbing at the end. I wasn't prepared for that. So, very well done. And then I have Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. This is a werewolf book, and we're following a character who is going home for the first time in a while. Her sister is pregnant and needs her help, so she's going home to help her sister. And it's like a small town, so you have a lot of small town vibes. You have her like connecting with old friends, with her like high school boyfriend. Maybe they'll get back together. But in the midst of all of that, she is attacked and bitten by a werewolf. And so she's also going through some weird changes and trying to figure out what these changes are and how they're going to affect her going forward, and how does she get through this without losing her mind and her family in the process. So it's a really good story. Again, did not expect to like it as much as I did because I didn't think I liked werewolf stories. So now I'm going to have to start looking for more werewolf things because this was just really fun. I loved the characters. This last category, I didn't know what to call it because none of them really seem like they go together, but I really wanted to talk about them. So these are like darker horror stories, weird horror stories, but they're also like, I could categorize these as maybe we should listen to the women. So starting off with Lone Women by Victor LaValle. This is a story set in the like around the turn of the century, 1800s. And we're following a black woman who is leaving her home. We see that it is burning down behind her, and she's dragging this very large, heavy trunk with her and going to Montana, where she has learned that anyone can claim a plot of land as long as they can work the land and prove that they can do that, then they can go. Anyone, even a lone black woman. So she's going off to Homestead. But what's in the trunk? How is it going to affect her life going forward? And like, it's just really cinematic and weird and unexpected and very well done. There's a lot of great stuff in here about just like women having to do what they have to do to get through, to survive, to make a way for themselves in the world. And it's really good. It's really good. Have to talk about Nestlings by Nat Cassidy because this is one of my favorite books I've read all year. And this is a story about a couple who have just had their first child. And the wife has had this like her horrible experience giving birth, and she is now paralyzed from the waist down in a freak birthing accident, basically. And so she's not only dealing with like postpartum depression and like adjusting to life with a newborn, but she's also dealing with a brand new disability. And they win this lottery where they get to live in this like fancy, like upscale, only rich people live here kind of apartment. And this is like a very famous apartment building in the city. And So they are trying to decide whether they should take it or not, and there are so many red flags from the beginning. And she sees the red flags and she questions her husband about it, but he's like, we have to take this. We have to live there. It's a great opportunity. So she goes along with it. And weird things start happening, and it's so good. Like, I don't even begin to know how to like describe this to people. It's Jewish. It's about motherhood. It's about like the postpartum experience, but also it's about like there's weird things like trying to steal your baby and kill you in the process, and what do you do about it? How do you survive that? So good. And then Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I had to include this because like it's set now. Like this book starts in 2024. And it's very prescient. It's very unsettling. This is a book about like after the apocalypse has happened. This is set like after everything has gone to shit. What happens afterwards? We're following a character who lives with her family in like a gated community, and they're safe as long as they stay inside their community. If you go outside of it, all kinds of terrible things could happen to you. Her father is like a minister, and so she's been raised with that, but she starts developing her own religion called Earthseed, and so a lot of like the chapter headings are like quotes from her like beliefs and her new religious stuff that she's putting together, and it's like a story about her going out into the world and finding other people and building a community based around her Earthseed ideas. And so it's apocalyptic, it's very unsettling, very disturbing, but also it's weirdly beautiful. So those are my horror recommendations. I hope I've offered you something today that you might want to try out and read. I'm excited to go read some more spooky things when I'm done here, but I'm always looking for more horror things to read. It's one of my favorite genres, and I hope that I've inspired you to pick something up today. Let me know down below in the comments if you have a book that you want to recommend to me or to anyone else. Let me know, and I would love to hear about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye!